Trick or treat!
My, what scary costumes you have. You know, if you're willing to make a deal, they can be a lot scarier. All I need is a couple of signatures.
Just give them the candy, Satan.
See, this is exactly why you don't invite the Lord of Evil into your home for a Halloween party. He eats half the food and harvests the souls of all the neighborhood children. How am I going to explain to the HOA why the street is infected with flesh-eating demon spawn?
I was just trying to help everyone get into the Halloween spirit. I'm not the bad guy here.
You are the literal definition of the bad guy.
Hi, it's the teacher from that school episode again. You two should probably start your podcast now, shouldn't you?
This isn't over, Satan. Hi, I'm Maddie.
I'm Corey, and this is Hallow-Holics Anonymous, a show about all things horror and occasionally Halloween.
All right, so in this episode, we're moving on to parts 3 and 4 of Halloween. Oh my god!
3 is Maddie's favorite.
So why did you discuss it?
Because I like it too.
It's almost like watching part 3, you're taking an interlude from the series or a break from it before you move on.
And I guess that wasn't really the idea, but yeah, that's totally what happened.
Most people are probably going to be listening to these Halloween episodes back to back.
I watched 3, 4, 5, and 6 I watched 4, 3, 5, and 6 back to back in that order. So they damn well better if I put that much time into that many movies.
From here on out, the series sort of takes a very strange turn and then tries to go back. And then after that, it just goes absolutely insane.
Yeah, I don't know how much it tried. I mean, it did. It brought Michael back, but it definitely tried to do, like you were saying in the part we didn't record, it definitely tried to do the Friday the 13th thing, and I think it worked. A lot of people don't agree with me because a lot of people don't think the Demon Thorn was an interesting plot point.
Demon Thorn has nothing to do with parts 3 and 4, but honestly, after knowing...
I think that 4 is actually setting the groundwork for it a little bit.
Retcon-wise, sure, but I do not think that was the original intention.
Just give me my dreams.
I feel a little silly saying that the Halloween series was so intellectual, honestly, starting from part 3, because it just goes off the rails. Not intellectual at all.
Oh, when we talked to part 3 is not it's not intellectual at all. It's a mess. It's an entertaining mess. I don't know if I think maybe you don't agree with me on that, but it's definitely a mess.
We'll talk about that. I don't think it's without its redeeming qualities, but this was the first time I've ever watched it in one sitting.
Oh, really? Yeah,
because I've watched it before a few times, but I've never been able to get through all of it at once.
I think the first time I saw it, it might have taken me 2 times to get through it. But my taste as a kid was very different in horror movies.
I don't know. I mean, it's got some serious flaws. If Tom Adkins can't make me sit through 2 hours, I don't know what can.
You're gonna hate me for saying this, but Tom Adkins was only good in Night of the Creeps. That's the only redeeming film I think I've ever seen that guy in. You might probably have forgotten a bunch of movies, and you're probably about to prove me wrong, but...
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
Who's the dude who plays Jack Death and Dollman?
Listen, who is the character with pathos in the remake, or sequel, if you will, of My Bloody Valentine, I think it is Tom Atkins. Thank you very much.
You can't argue his skills and use that movie.
He was the best thing in there.
Well, maybe. I don't actually think I've seen it.
Listen, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Even though he's not quite as prolific, Tom Atkins' skill and convincing badassery is on par with Bruce Campbell.
Oh, no. He doesn't have the range.
Oh my gosh. How he has so much more depth. Look, I love Bruce Campbell, but I feel like if he saves the day, it's on accident. If Tom Atkins saves the day, it's because he went balls out. And except he didn't save the day in this, really, but that's besides the point.
Oh, he was in Bruiser. I didn't remember him being in Bruiser. I also don't really remember Bruiser very well because Bruiser was an awful movie. Rest in peace, Romero.
All right. Well, before we get into the movies, and you prove to me exactly why you hate Tom Atkins so much because you're jealous, your friend actually wanted to give us a little presentation before we started.
Oh, not him again.
Listen, you invited him.
I did not. I thought you did.
Oh, he told me you asked for his presence especially.
I knew you guys wanted me to show up. That's why I'm here. I felt it in my bones.
Dude, just do what you're here to do and please leave.
I know you don't really feel that way. Anyway, today I'm here to tell y'all how to carve a pumpkin. And I'm going to do so by reading this article I found on the internet on WikiHow. So here we go. Choosing a pumpkin. First off, you gotta buy yourself a pumpkin shortly before Halloween. Although Halloween excitement can build early in October, especially for children, do not buy your pumpkin too early. Most pumpkins will be rotten beyond recovery after a week and a half to 2 weeks.
That's really good advice, Jim. You know, Corey, you need to invite him over more often.
I don't know how to make you understand how awkward this guy makes me feel, Maddie.
Stop saying that. You know you love me being around here. Let me just get back to my pumpkin carving.
All right, man. Sorry. I'm sorry. Please just go ahead, and then maybe you can just get in your car and go back to whatever highway you've been stalking on.
Thank you. Number 2. You select a pumpkin. Visit your local supermarket or pumpkin patch for a good offering. If you live near a farmer's market, vendors there may also sell pumpkins. Find a location with a healthy selection of pumpkins that have a range of sizes. If you're pumpkin hunting with young children, a pumpkin patch may be the most fun for them. You can find a local pumpkin patch by searching online or keeping an eye open for advertisements around the area where you live. I know I often find these advertisements on Craigslist.
I don't know.
You hunt for pumpkin patches on Craigslist?
I need him to leave, Maddie. This is awful.
Please, guys, just let me continue. This is important information for your listeners. We gotta tell them how to carve these.
I guess keep going. This is really gross, but keep going.
Number 3. Select yourself a healthy pumpkin. When you're choosing a pumpkin, try to pick one that's free of nicks, bruises, and cuts.
Unlike me that night on the highway.
I feel like this is less of a pumpkin story and more of a metaphor for something I'm not quite grasping.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about. I mean, it's a WikiHow, but it doesn't feel like a WikiHow to carve or select pumpkins. It feels like... Yeah, I don't even want to talk about what it feels like.
Guys, can we please continue?
I guess.
Sure, man.
Now I want you to look for a pumpkin with a flat base. This will make it easier to display that carved pumpkin on Halloween night. It's not important if the pumpkin you like is clean or dirty.
Oh my god, is this really about pumpkins?
Yeah, this is real. This is WikiHow. You can look this up. www.wikihow.com/carve-a-pumpkin. Like I said, it's not important if the pumpkin you like is clean or dirty. Remember, you can always wash the pumpkin with an old cloth when you get home. If you're planning on an elaborate pumpkin carving, note that a larger gourd will provide more surface space and also takes more work to carve.
I'm very concerned about when this fella gets to the actual carving part.
You know, I've got to admit, it's probably just me, but I am getting a little uncomfortable.
If there's a section about how to hide your carved pumpkin, we're done with this. Like how to if he even mentions dumping lye on the pumpkin in the crawl space in your basement, we're done with him.
Choose a design before you start carving. Many jack-o'-lantern designs are available online. Try searching for more ideas. Alternately, drop into your local library and borrow a book of carving ideas. Just make sure you use a VPN if you're on the internet. Don't want people seeing your search data.
About pumpkins?
Yeah, that's a little weird. I don't know why you mentioned that.
Number 2, choose a method for carving your pumpkin. You can go traditional, which is cut out eyes, a mouth, perhaps a nose. This design is easiest for beginners because it's just some simple slashing. Or you can carve a silhouette. It's a little more difficult. You pick a shape. For instance, a ghost. Or your neighbor.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I
Don't worry about that. We'll just go with ghost for now. You carve out the, quote, negative space around the ghost shape. Then carve out features like eyes or a mouth. You'll end up with a circle of light around the entire dark shape with lighted details. Use an X-Acto knife to scratch away the pumpkin skin and reveal the pulp. Don't carve all the way into the gourd. Now that's a mess you don't want to have to clean up. Finally, you gotta trace your design on the pumpkin. For traditional silhouette and pumpkin carving, use a permanent marker or dry erase marker to outline your design on the pumpkin, much like you would a person's silhouette on the floor.
What?
If you're decorating pumpkins with children,
Wait, what?
What? What do you mean?
Decorating pumpkins with children?
With the neighborhood kids when they come over to spend time with you. You don't live in a tight-knit community?
Well, not anymore after Satan got through with them.
that is unfortunate. We're probably going to have to murder everyone that lives in this town now.
I forgot where I was.
You were talking about carving with children.
Yes, carving children.
With children.
Part 3, carving the children.
Oh, God.
Part 3, carving the pumpkin. Number 1, make sure you set up a spacious work area. This can get messy, and it's best to keep all that mess off the floor or kitchen table.
Jim, is this a WikiHow article, or did you write it?
I found it. I would never write something like this. If I wrote something like this, it would be a masterpiece. This guy's an amateur. I can tell. Make sure you lay out your tools nice and in order. Make sure you got a bowl for discarded pumpkin innards. Ain't nothing worse than innards getting all over your floor. Trust me, I know. Number 2, you need to make sure you select a sharp knife. I found one in a drawer in Corey's kitchen the other night.
What?
How did you get into his kitchen?
I didn't mean
Corey,
that.
did you have a party without me?
No, I didn't. I heard a noise real late that night, some clattering, but I just thought it was one of the dogs. But in hindsight, because we know this guy, I should just always assume it's him now. I'm incredibly lucky I'm still alive.
You're incredibly lucky I'm still your friend after having all these late night hangout sessions with Jim, carving pumpkins.
I can't believe you're jealous of my stalker right now.
I'm not jealous. I'm just saying I would appreciate, an invitation, even if I, maybe am busy at the time, just the thought.
I'm not your damn stalker just because I like to appreciate you from afar. So, like I said, you need a sharp knife. I got a nice little paring knife, or if you want something a little bigger, maybe a fillet knife. You need to cut a lid first. Lift it off to expose your subject's brains, your pumpkin's innards. Just make sure you keep the knife angled towards the center of the pumpkin as you carve the lid and open it.
Yeah, you don't want to have any accidents.
Nothing is worse than leaving your own blood at the scene.
He's doing this on purpose. You realize that, don't you? Like, he's essentially confessing to serial murder.
I think he's confessing to carving a pumpkin. Now that I've had time to calm down and really absorb his advice, Corey, you're overreacting. It's Halloween.
I can't believe we're not on the same page. Let's just get this done.
Number 4, remove the filling from your pumpkin. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit now. What you want to do here is using a large spoon, or do it like I like to do it. You take your hands and you just get them all up in them guts.
Now, do you use the seeds when you're done? Do you bake them?
I never let anything go to waste that I carve, Maddie.
That's good to know. I'm glad to know that you're sort of environment friendly, Jim.
Really am. Use every part. Keep some as trophies.
He just admitted to keeping trophies, and you're still okay with this.
Well, seeds don't go bad. If he wants to hold on to his seeds from his pumpkins, I have nothing wrong, nothing against that.
Fine.
Just remember this step can be skipped if you're simply carving down to the pulp. But if you're like me, you're going to want to get up in them guts. Number 5.
Is it good for the skin?
Feels nice. Isn't that what's important? That it feels nice and makes you happy no matter who it may hurt?
Oh, come on.
Well, look, exfoliation can be painful for some people, Corey.
Corey, may I continue? This is my moment, please.
The sooner this is done, the better.
Now to carve your design, you want to use a gentle back and forth motion to cut into the pumpkin. Generally, I agree with this, but to start, you might want to give it 30 to 40 good stabs first. You draw this knife back and forth while maintaining steady downward pressure. Keep following that pattern until you've carved out the entire design. And there you have it. You set the inside on fire, maybe with a candle. You got yourself a jack-o'-lantern. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you,
God.
Jim. I'm glad you took the time out of your day to really thoroughly research that and explain in detail how to carve a jack-o'-lantern, because God knows I've hurt myself quite a few times trying to carve faces out of cantaloupes and the like.
I can relate. I've heard a lot. Cutting faces. A lot. I'll see you guys later. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, Jim.
Bye, man. Happy Halloween.
No problem, Corey. I'll be in the bathroom alone if you have anything to say to me.
I really don't. In fact, the only thing I want to say right now is, on this day in horror history.
Being that we recorded on September 25th for our Halloween party, in 1977, Clea Duvall, who starred in The Grudge, Ghost of Mars, and The Faculty, was born. Also, Aldo Ray in 1926, who appeared in The Psychic Killer, The Blog, and The Haunted. And the people who died, 2002, Maurice Manson, who appeared in The Creature Walks Among Us and The Undead, and The Three Stooges in Orbit, which really isn't that relevant. He was 89 years old. He also starred in several episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents and The Monsters.
I love Clea Duvall. What was Carnival? Did you watch Carnival on HBO?
I haven't.
Oh, you really should. That was on this day in horror history. Ladies and gentlemen, in continuing with our Halloween retrospective, I am here tonight to speak to you about the black sheep of the Halloween family.
And this is the point where I realize I have to share screen again so we can watch the trailer.
Oh, good idea. This is also the movie that finally blows the lid off the Irish conspiracy.
Wait, what?
But to that later.
Oh my god.
Man, say what you want about this movie. The masks are dope.
I'd say which one is the best one?
I really like the jack-o'-lantern too. I mean, a skull's a skull.
Halloween 3, season of the witch, the night no one comes home.
October 22nd at a theater near you.
Yep.
You know, not even on purpose, episode 40. This year is, which is
really
when this
know
starts.
much about Halloween.
This year is the 40th anniversary of Halloween.
The barriers will be down.
Oh, that's true, it is.
And the unreal. And the dead might be looking in.
You happen to know anything about this Cochran?
All I can tell you, mister, is watch out. He's watching you, friend, I guarantee you that.
Trick or treat.
Hey, Mr. Cochran, just what is the final process?
Fellas, I was just kidding.
Witchcraft. To us, it was a way of controlling our environment.
Spoilers.
Hey!
This preview is giving me an anxiety attack. Oh, that scene was so good. I will explain why in a minute.
Yeah, you know that actress who got shot in the face with that laser?
Just what I had in mind for you, little buddy. Why, Cochran?
Was what?
She was married to Tom Atkins at the time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Nothing here to indicate there was ever a body at all.
Operator, this is an emergency.
Tom Atkins' wife was married to somebody on crew. I want to say it was the director or the writer. I
The
forget.
children. I'm glad you'll be able to watch it.
You know, I don't love the silver shamrock theme, but I do like that sort of a secret theme that hides throughout the film.
The world's going to change tonight, Doctor.
Oh, the soundtrack. Like, I don't know if the audience can hear this, if they're listening to it on headphones or not, but like, throughout this trailer, there's just whispers going, trick or treat.
Yeah.
Halloween 3, season of the witch, the night no one comes home.
For a second, I thought that was you being a weirdo. So
I thought it was you being a weirdo.
What?
I'm just crazy.
That is awesome.
So they took a risk filming this movie, which really didn't seem to pay off.
But the main
Michael
risk
Myers.
the main risk was only because part 2 existed.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if they had done this as part 2, it wouldn't have been such a big risk.
Or if they just called it Season of the Witch.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
got rid of the Halloween theme. I think it would have. I mean, it's still like, you take away the Halloween stuff, you still have a movie with a muddled, ridiculous plot, which I'm going to get to. But, I mean, I enjoyed it. But in this universe, much like ours, the first 2 Halloween movies exist only on screen. At the time, this movie didn't do very well either. Critically, the fans disliked it, and it didn't really make any money.
I'd like to say, my phrase I've come up with is it was notoriously fan-panned.
Yeah, I mean, it's found a cult following now. Like, people seem to look back fondly on this movie. I mean, I kind of do.
Well, people look back fondly
younger.
on Nightmare on Elm Street too. So,
Yeah, good point. Remember? Oh, you've got the body and I've got the brain. Yeah, that one's pretty rough.
The really weird gay dancing scene in his bedroom.
Yeah.
Gosh, that movie.
Oh, that whole movie is full of like homoerotic content.
Extreme, yeah. The director pretended he didn't know what like people were talking about.
Yeah, that's mentioned in that super long documentary. All right, so the plot to this film. Here we go. Like I said, it's a muddled nightmare, but I'm going to try to explain it as best I can. So a dude is murdered in a hospital. We open this movie on a guy running away from a dude in a suit. He gets caught, he's getting choked out, and he manages to pull the brakes off of this car, smashes this dude. And they use this really cartoony soundtrack. They do this in a couple different places in this movie. I know, like, it's a sound that's normally used for like people falling over in dirt, and I know I've heard it in cartoons before. It's so weird to like hear. It's jarring to hear that kind of thing in this movie. So yeah, this guy ends up at the hospital. He ends up getting murdered. The doctor follows this guy.
Gruesomely.
Yeah, pretty gruesome. Oh, yeah. I should get to that right now. So these businessmen who turn out to be robots, again, muddled plot, and this isn't the only guy they try to kill. They try to kill Dr. Daniel, Tom Atkins' character, the same way. He takes this dude's head, puts his thumbs in his eyes, and sort of squishes his sinuses into his brain. Like, and I know they're only doing it to show that these robo-businessmen are super strong, but it's such a weird way to murder somebody. It's cool to watch, though.
Well, if I've always heard that if you are really strong and you use the palm of your hand to hit a person's nose upwards, you can kill them.
I'm pretty sure that's not. I think that's been debunked, because if you think about boxers that have actually probably been hit that way.
If Jean-Claude Van Damme can do it.
Jesus Christ. That's right. You watched Bloodsport the other day.
And I watched Cyborg yesterday.
Oh, sorry. All right. Maddie's right. She's citing Van Damme films as fact. I'm just going to let her be right. So he follows this guy outside. The guy sets himself on fire in a car. And his interest has all of a sudden been piqued. So he's no longer Dr. Daniel Chalice. He's now Dr. Detective. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Detective is now looking to solve this case, and he ends up meeting the murdered patient's daughter, Ellie.
Mm-hmm. Very giallo at this point, too. The American schmuck who tries to investigate a mystery he has no business in. Very, very.
And I should probably mention right now that Dr. Daniel is probably one of the most morally reprehensible characters I have ever seen in a leading man. He is a drunk. He goes to his job as a doctor in a hospital drunk, which maybe wasn't as weird in 82, but it's weird. He's very obviously cheating on his wife with many different women. He never sees his kids unless it's to drop by there. And it's so weird the way they did that. Like, I thought he was kind of estranged from his family and maybe divorced.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, it's not. In the documentary I watched, he says that they're still married.
Jesus.
So he's like, I mean, he boned that mortician girl. He bones Ellie eventually. He probably slept with that head nurse because they smacked each other's asses in that familiar way.
And there's not even really any emotional development before he sleeps with her. He just comes back to the hotel room while he's investigating. She takes off her robe or whatever, and he's like, all right, I'm down.
Yeah, and then he creepily is like, how old are you?
Yeah.
Afterwards, she's like, I'm older than you think. And I know why they threw that in there because of the end that I'm going to get to. But it just made him even creepier and more terrible.
Mm-hmm. Definitely no bedside manner.
No, definitely not. So after knowing Ellie for like 24 hours, he grabs a 6-pack and heads to the next town over, which is a company town for Silver Shamrock Novelties, which is this company that makes these masks, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to investigate Silver Shamrock masks because Ellie's dad, the guy who was murdered in the hospital, was like clutching this jack-o'-lantern mask with a Silver Shamrock logo on it.
I would also like to address that they make a bunch of wildly popular toys, which is what built this guy's fortune. And among them is a really weird, like, musical Indian chief orchestra toy.
Oh, yeah. All those toys were really weird and, like, casual racist. But that one was definitely, like, the top there. That thing was really weird. And there's all sorts of – I like automatons, like the early sort of 19th century automatons. And the old lady knitting later on is kind of one of those. And I thought that was pretty cool. It was neat to see some of that stuff and some of the Tinker Toys and stuff.
She wasn't terribly believable, but I appreciated her. Built in the 1700s, she looked exactly like a human being.
Right. Please ignore the face that is obviously made out of clay. So Dr. Daniel and Ellie uncover this plot, I guess we'll call it, to murder a bunch of children with Halloween masks. So Connell Cochran, the head of the Irish conspiracy and owner of Silver Shamrock Novelties, who I think is also an ancient druid, but it's not super clear on that.
I think he's just insane.
I don't know. It felt like he was actually like super old, like an ancient druid. Mm. Anyway, they steal a piece of Stonehenge and they chip little bits of Stonehenge off and lace it into these microchips.
Yeah.
Then they hide these microchips inside the company's logo that's attached to the Halloween mask. Right?
Yeah.
And then this sort of magical bomb is then set to trigger as the kids watch a commercial on Halloween night.
And at this point, it gradually spirals into a weird Lovecraft meets Terminator plot.
Yeah. I wasn't getting a whole lot of Lovecraft. Now that you say it, I can see it, but definitely Terminator vibes. So yeah, I zoned out for a bit, but I'm not totally sure what the dude's end game was.
To kill children.
Yeah, I got that, but it was a sacrifice, obviously. Because they pronounce Solomon correctly in this one. So that's how I know it's a sacrifice, because they're talking about pagan stuff. But I assume he's doing it for power. I don't know. He seems to already have a lot of power and money, so I don't really see a point. But he does seem to be enjoying himself, even in the end when he dies. So maybe the dude's just into killing stuff, which I'm fine with. That's cool.
I think the science behind the masks, even if there's pagan magic involved, really bugs me.
Yeah. Oh. I'm getting to that. I've got a whole bit planned out. So the dude also has this army of super strong but like super squishy robot businessmen.
Very squishy.
Yeah, like these guys are strong enough to like crush sinuses into brains.
Yeah.
But like you can stick your hand up in them and pull stuff out. That came out really weird, but I'm going to leave it.
I was actually watching this movie with a friend of mine who came over while we drank sake and root beer. And we argued about why they were so squishy, and she made the point, or she said it didn't make sense, and then I said, well, this was the 80s. Destructive death robots weren't quite as advanced as they are now.
Yeah, but speaking of advancements, that's another thing that kind of bugs me about this movie. This dude has, like, mastered artificial intelligence. He's mastered robotics. He's a magical genius. He can make these magical weapons that are a marriage of magic and science. So I don't understand why this guy isn't like making magical weapons of mass destruction, selling them to governments, causing his chaos on a worldwide scale that way, using his robot army to sort of like supplement his murder fetish and just like chilling on an island somewhere.
Because he'd rather focus on hundreds of thousands of children.
Yeah, but you can get hundreds of thousands of children.
He wanted to specifically focus on children, so the psychological impact on their parents may have been more intense.
Fair enough. I just think there's an easier, more efficient way to kill thousands of children. So I'm going to spoil the hell out of this movie right now, because if you haven't seen it, you can stop listening, go watch the movie if you want to, or you can just listen to me mumble about it. So they kind of foil the bad guys by dumping a bunch of the magical silver shamrock druid bombs into the evil ancient druid's computer lair, which is where he marries all this magic and technology. This causes some kind of esoteric overload of Stonehenge, this magical overload of Stonehenge, killing everyone, including Connell. Sorry, I forgot his name for a second. I don't know how I could forget a name like Connell. It kills everybody except for him and Ellie, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because in a completely non-predictable twist, Ellie turns out to be a robot as well.
Was she always a robot, or did at some point she get killed and was replaced with a robot?
Well, that is quite a hot debate between people who care about that sort of thing.
Like us.
No, in this case, like, I don't give a shit. Like, there's a scene in one of the special features on the DVD, I think it's still in the documentary, where I can't remember if it's the director or the scriptwriter. I think it's the director. He's at this Halloween 3 screening, and the first question during the Q&A that the host asks him is like, so, was Ellie a robot or not? And the dude's like, I have no idea. So, like, yeah, I mean, I personally, if I was to speculate, I think she was. There's no other reason for her to say I'm older than you think, unless she's a Terminator lady squishy robot.
Well, maybe she could have said it in the heat of the moment because she was really 17.
I don't know. She doesn't look 17. I mean,
yeah, you know what? That's what they always say before they get arrested.
That's a very good point.
But, like, why would she have put on the facade of being upset and rushing to the car that belonged to her father? Or, even better, why would she drag Tom Adkins into this? He was just a random horny doctor.
Why does anything in this movie happen? Like, it's because some guy just half-assed it. That's why all this stuff happens.
I think that is the right answer.
I do, too.
It's just slapped on at the end. They're like, oh, this would be a cool scene. That would throw everybody for a loop. She's a robot.
And they were right. It didn't throw me for a loop, but it was a cool scene. Like that's one thing this movie's really got. The death scenes are great.
Oh yeah,
that lady burning her face off.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Him smacking Robo Ellie's head off and all that yellow goop was great. Oh, I really like that stuff.
So, I wasn't really satisfied with the bugs and snakes coming out of them. While I thought it looked cool, I couldn't quite understand why until I came up with my own reason. It's life traded for a life. All of the years that the children would have experienced, all of the days and the time, is traded for the lives of these creepy crawlies crawling out of them. The longer their lives would have been, the more horrible things come out. And that's why that one woman only had one little grasshopper, because she was going to die soon anyway.
Yeah, I mean, she did kind of feign herself to death. So, and that actually reminds me, we need to talk about the Willy Wonka family real quick. So the Willy Wonka family is this family. The father sells these masks, and he's like, yeah, and he's sold more masks than the rest of the country, so he gets to go to the facility. The costume designer actually dressed this family up as the worst family she possibly could. They look as obnoxious and terrible as they do. That was totally on purpose, which I think is great. What
was with that weird Victorian costume she wore at the factory?
Dude, their outfit, that kid's wearing like a weird 70s disco outfit.
None of it makes sense.
Yeah. She just wanted them to be the most obnoxious American family ever. Like, they're in this big RV. They're from San Diego, which is another thing that drives me crazy. San Diego is a veritable paradise. Mm-hmm. Why do you need an RV to go other places when you already are on vacation every minute of your life when you're not working? Unless you're just going to other places to see how shitty everybody else lives just to make yourself feel better for living in San Diego. That bothers me.
I don't think they went that deep.
I don't either. But I also don't think they went that deep as the bugs for years thing. I think it's really cool. So yeah, this family goes to tour the facility and be super obnoxious. And they turn out to be unwitting test subjects. So the kid puts his mask on, he sits down. Dun, 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 no more days till Halloween, blah, 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 your head's going to blow up. He hears the song. The mask starts melting and melting his face. He falls over while he's tearing the mask off. His face starts giving birth to bugs and snakes, and his mom faints to death with her grasshopper.
Or has a heart attack.
No, she fainted to death. Heart attack. Come on. Fainted to death. So anyways, this lady faints to death. And the dad gets bit by a rattlesnake from his kid's face rattlesnake to death.
You know, I agree with your point that they are obnoxious, but they're not bad people. They earnestly try to be nice to everyone around them. Even the dad, when he comes out and slaps Tom Adkins on the back and everything, he's not yelling at Tom about the bike. He's yelling at his own kid about the bike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, like...
Mom's kind of a dick, though.
She's hitting on Tom, I think, but, you know. I don't know. I felt bad for them anyway, because I don't think they were bad people. I think the dad was just unwittingly had very poor social skills and really passionate about his job.
Yeah, I think you're right. I hated them. They were obnoxious, and I think they deserved to die, especially the kid and the mom. The dad, I could take him or leave him. But yeah, so the Willy Wonka family exists. All the Druid computer layer stuff happens, and the movie is over.
It's probably one of the more brutal child deaths if we ever made a list, though.
Yeah, it's up there with that kid in the Blob. Mm-hmm. That gets the remake that gets blobbed. That's pretty awesome. And the kid from Demon Knight who explodes.
Have you ever seen, now this isn't a porn film, but the remake of The Lift by the same director, The Shaft? There's a bit where the elevator collapses, I believe, and like you see everyone falling to their death, and one of them is a child. Oh, nice. I'm going to have to watch that now. So I think the kid from Near Dark is in this. Oh, you mean the director of The Final Girl?
Oh, he directed The Final Girls?
Mm-hmm.
Or The Final...
Yeah, and he is Jason Patrick of The Lost Boys' half-brother.
Oh, I didn't know that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he plays Dr. Dan's son. I didn't look it up. He looks like him, but the speech impediments match. That's my evidence.
Yeah, I'd have to investigate myself. I wasn't paying attention to a lot of smaller characters in this film.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just, that kid's voice has stuck with me.
I think the main moral here is don't piss Stonehenge off.
Yeah, or just don't steal big rocks.
Yeah, I felt like at the end when that guy was being destroyed in joy by Stonehenge was just royally upset.
Yeah, well, I think that was because Stonehenge was an unwitting participant in the Irish conspiracy.
Well, you have an obsession with the Irish conspiracy here. Is there something you're not telling me? You know, Corey,
No.
am, according to Ancestry DNA, I am 24% Irish.
I am a percent of Irish too. I forget what, but that doesn't mean that I can't talk about the conspiracy. This movie makes me wonder how often the world has experienced a magical near apocalypse. Like, how many creepy doctors have stopped mass extinction events? And how many robot businessmen are out there waiting to squeeze our sinuses into our brains? How many magical...
Did Jim slip something funny into your pumpkin pie?
No, I'm serious. Like, how many magical items are out there waiting to kill us? How many have already tried, Maddie? Tickle Me Elmos? Cabbage Patch Kids? Might these have been mystical weapons of mass destruction? We will probably never know, but I bet there's a YouTube video accusing them of this.
I don't think you'd be wrong. Just picture a Dutch teenager, Tickle Me Elmo, as some like over the top dramatic music plays, and you see a bunch of really like poor pixelated graphics to illustrate the point.
Yeah, exactly, with a whole lot of like MS Paint circles and arrows.
The Cabbage Patch Dolls.
God. Oh, and it would be that awful anonymous computer voice speak instead of an actual narrator. The scariest thing about this movie is actually a picture in the documentary of John Carpenter and Alan Howarth working on the soundtrack. The soundtrack's great. Very, very Carpenter, very synthy, very wonderful. But in this picture, it's got Howarth and Carpenter sitting around all their reel-to-reel tape decks and their synthesizer. And in front of Carpenter's synthesizer, the one he probably created some of the greatest soundtracks I've ever heard, right in front of him, he's got his coffee mug sitting on top of it and a pack of cigarettes sitting on top of it. These things were thousands of dollars back then. And he just had his coffee mug willy-nilly sitting next to this computer that if he would have destroyed with that coffee cup that he would have shorted out, he might have lost all those patches, all of the most famous like bits of John Carpenter music that could have been saved on that synth. It gave me anxiety to see that cup of coffee. I wish I had that picture. I should have screen shared it. I'll find it and we'll put it on the blog. But holy shit, as someone who likes synthesizers, it just made me so uncomfortable.
I think about this. There have probably been absolute masterpieces written by the greatest artists, created by the greatest artists throughout history that have been inadvertently destroyed by a spilled cup of coffee.
For sure. Even on a very, 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 very smaller scale. Like the music me and a friend of mine made, that stuff we used to save everything on zip disks. Zip disks, for those of you who may not know, were sort of fatter looking 3.5-inch floppy disks.
Yeah, after floppy disks, before flash drives.
Yeah, exactly. And those are gone. Like, number one, even if they still existed, nobody has any way to play those anymore. So, like, all the masters of my old recordings of this one band are just gone. We still have the final songs, but all the pieces are gone, which is kind of sad.
You know, when my grandfather was a college professor, he was a computer professor, he had created a program for one of his classes, because he did programming all the time. He had a program he was really proud of and he was going to bring to class, and so that he would find it later, my grandmother put the floppy disk on the fridge door with a magnet.
Oh, God.
He said that was like one of the very few times he has ever cried.
Oh, that poor guy. That's awful. I couldn't imagine. So, yeah, that's Halloween 3. Like I said, it's got some moments. I like it. It's not great, but...
It was sort of the big-lipped alligator moment of the series. It happened, and then it didn't happen. No one ever talked about it after that film.
Mm-hmm. And the idea was cool. The idea of doing a different anthology movie that takes place on Halloween night once a year is a cool idea. I mean, it's worked. Like Trick or Treat, great movie.
For me, it felt like they took a Coen concept and took the humor out. Coen did like the stuff.
Oh, I thought you meant the singer.
No. The director. The director.
But yeah. That's a very good way to look at it. If you're not talking about the singer-songwriter, we should do the stuff sometime. We need to find we could do would that be an Easter thing? I don't know.
That'd be perfect for Easter.
I imagine the stuff tastes like marshmallow fluff before it starts driving your brain.
That's exactly how I imagine it. Like cold, ice creamy marshmallow fluff.
Yeah, exactly. I'd eat it. I'd totally let the stuff drive my brain. That stuff looked delicious.
Well, that sure was an entertaining bit of whatever you're doing right now, but I think I got to go back to my basement bunker.
Goodbye, Sally!
And remember, fair maiden,
should you need us?
Should you need us for any reason at all,
we will be there.
I need you, little green man. I don't know why, but every now and again in my life, for no apparent reason at all, I need you. All of you.
You do?
Well, why didn't you say so?
Thinking about having a party for all of the previous characters we've met in the last 8 months of this podcast.
Well, they're not just characters, they're real people.
Yeah, I meant characters as in zany, wacky folks.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, before your uncle comes back from his wild 80s themed party down in the basement, I think we'd better start our next movie.
I think you're right.
Halloween 4.
The beginning.
10 years ago, on the night of October 31st, a small Midwestern town fell victim to an escaped killer. Under the cover of darkness, he carried out the most horrifying mass murder on record.
I wish this guy could
people in cold
narrate
blood. Ever since that
I don't
night,
know. It would always be
no
pretty
one
dark if he did.
has forgotten his name.
And today, Corey walks into work. I can't do the impersonation.
The same.
Has never been the same.
In fact, it was very different in the last film.
Corey had no idea he'd be staying after work.
He has returned for one more night of unholy terror.
And I swear it's just one more.
Michael!
He'll spend the entire evening stuck on feet off.
He's here to kill that little girl and anybody who gets in his way.
Oh, God!
Who's gonna be next?
Probably that guy who was screaming. They got everything. Stabbing, car chases, explosions.
Halloween 4. The return of Michael Myers.
Maybe nobody knows how to stop him.
The return of Loomis's
10 years.
My scars. Oh, those are so bad.
Yeah, they've got a few things they said about those scars in the commentary that were pretty funny.
The documentary I watched too mentioned it as well.
So before we discuss the plot, or before we discuss the movie in depth, I'd like to describe my typical summary, even though the trailer pretty much gave it away. So, let me clear my throat here. Laurie Strode is dead? Her daughter, Jamie, traumatized by flashes of the uncle she never knew, is bullied at school while Dr. Loomis, exhausted and broken from his ordeals with Michael, is once again forced to track the monster down before he kills again, and again, and again.
No!
No! No! No!
We're getting way ahead of ourselves, but I love that part. No!
So, did you know that for Halloween Horror Nights this year, Halloween 4 is one of the settings?
No, I didn't.
That specifically Halloween 4, and I'd actually like to quote the press release from Halloween Daily News real quick. Inside the Halloween 4 haunted house at the Orlando Park, you'll be dropped right in the middle of Michael Myers' path, where he is on his way to eradicating his niece. He takes out everyone in his way, and you'll be right in the middle of the action. Try your best to escape the bloodbath. Not even Loomis, Myers' psychiatrist, can save you.
Interesting. What a strange one to pick for that.
Yeah, it's even stranger that they think if you like Halloween and want to be in this setting, you don't know who Loomis is and they have to clarify.
Yeah. Do you think they use 4 because the number 4 is in the number 40?
I think they probably used 4 because the licensing rights were probably cheaper.
it was probably a lot cheaper too.
Or it's easier to stage a chase sequence with it because there's more settings over the car chase and they go to different places besides just the 2 houses. They include a school setting, like where they're being chased. They include like going down the road and driving and all that. So maybe it's because there's so many settings.
Could be. I shouldn't have watched these out of order. I watched 4 before I watched 3, and now I keep thinking 4 comes before 3 chronologically. It's very confusing in my brain.
So, remember how in-depth we discussed the budget of part 1 and how it was very clearly not fall at all, and they painted leaves when Laurie was on set? This movie is so fall, it is frightening. It is very, very, very fall in this one. There is no question that it is fall. All of the trees are dying. And it made me wonder, perhaps Michael's presence has infected and crippled this town. Perhaps it's like a virus or something.
It's fall.
Oh, well, that's not as fun.
Or Halloween takes place in that season before winter in the Midwest.
You don't think it's like a metaphorical crippling of the town's psyche and spirit?
No, I do think it is, especially because they bring up the whole Sam Hain. Sorry, it shouldn't bother me. Like I was complaining at work about that mispronunciation, and one of my students was like, there's this thing where, like, if words are used differently in a different country long enough, it's okay, right? So Sam Hain's actually fine. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Well, no, it's is.
Yeah, I know. But I was irritated that he was right.
Yeah, I mean, look at how Banshee is spelled. Bean Sid.
No, it's spelled Banshee.
It's B-E-A-N space S-I-D-H-E. Really, Banshee.
B-A-S-H-E-E.
Dude, do we really have to look this up right now?
Yes. You're looking up the Celtic version.
Which is the version. Don't even, if you want to know how to properly pronounce, Sam Hain or Saw Wayne, just say Halloween. Bean Sid.
Oh, what's that to the right of your screen there, buddy?
Gorgon?
No, that's Banshee. There you go. Your cursor was just over it, and you're lying.
Look,
and there it is again.
My point is that you're wrong, because look at that. That's how it's phonetically pronounced. And wait, hold on.
Oh, you're failing.
Look, I didn't come up with this phrasing. It's the same thing because it pulls up the same results.
Everybody that never tweets at us, tweet at Maddie that she's super wrong.
Also, Ban Sith, apparently.
Huh.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna start calling it Bean Sid, just because you call everything Sawane, you pretentious nerd.
It's not everything.
Whatever.
In fact, the band Sam Hain, Glenn Danzig's band after the Misfits, I will pronounce that Sam Hain because the band chose to call themselves Sam Hain. That is fine. But when you're talking about the actual, like, Celtic celebration of New Year, death of the old, dead people coming to hang out by your fire thing, then it has to be Samhain to me. I don't care if I'm wrong. That's what it is. I'm
going to yield to the wisdom of Donald Pleasance because I respect my elders.
No!
So one cool point the director made when he was establishing the opening shots is how he wanted to go back to the agrarian roots of Halloween, and he showed a lot of really wonderful silhouettes of farm scenery and decrepit, empty fields and like disturbing looking tools. And it was really, really cool because it immediately established this dark feel of what the season really is.
Yeah, and that also harkens back to 1 as well. The sort of, I mean, 1 did it because of like, hey, look at how much we can prove we're filming this not in, what was it, Salt Lake City or Utah or something?
Yeah.
Look at how much we're filming this in the Midwest. Check out all this decrepit farm shit.
I do think they put a lot of care in trying to capture the feel of part 1 in this film.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And I think that just in general, like, everybody really loved this movie, and it shows, because I really love this movie. And I know that is kind of a point of contention, because it's not 1 or 1, but...
So one of the biggest challenges in writing this script was actually figuring out a way to bring Michael back, or to stage his escape.
Yeah, that's true. This is before you could nurse him back to life with hermits.
So they just... You need to watch Koila, by the way. It has one of the best nursing back to life with hermit scenes ever.
Ooh.
Complete with an awesome song.
I love me a nursing back to life with hermit scene.
So the initial script presented, written by David Etchison and John Carpenter, which got panned. And even though they panned the script that was initially presented, the one that was ultimately used with the film, once Carpenter just washed his hands of the whole thing and decided not to be involved at all, scenes weren't really excessively removed or added. Of every sequel after 2, this one stuck to the material the closest, I think. And what's even crazier is that it was written in 2 weeks. Now, I did find the original script. And quick perusal through it, honestly, it seemed even more like a B-movie or something like Children of the Corn, which isn't a bad thing, but it wasn't really Halloween-esque. It was very, very supernatural. And at first I was confused because Michael's character is credited and in all the movies as the Shape, and that's how he's listed in the general and the cast list. So
yeah. I think there's an argument here that Michael is supernatural now. I mean, the dude stabs a chick with a shotgun. He rips faces off. Oh, what else does he do in this one? Well, he squishes a dude's head. Like, he twists a cop into knots. Like, I'm pretty sure at this point this is a supernatural Michael. This is why I've been, I don't remember if I've said it yet, but this is why I'm saying now that this is what's setting up 5 and 6, whether it's doing it on purpose or not.
Okay, and this kind of in a way relates to Friday the 13th as well, because after part 3, there's the debate of whether or not Jason had been a zombie at that point or not. By part 3, you could almost believably think that he was alive in some way, just horribly mutated and severely mentally handicapped.
Yeah, personally, I don't consider Jason Voorhees dead until after the. I think the first time, the first time he's undead is when Tommy brings him back to life in 6. I think he's alive until 6.
Really? You think he's alive in part 5?
I think so.
That's not even Jason.
Well, yeah, that's, my point is,
Gotcha.
Tommy kills him as a child in 3. 4 is not Jason. No, I'm sorry. Tommy kills him at the end of 4. 5 is not Jason. 6, Tommy resurrects Jason, which means every death after that is Tommy's fault.
Going back to the original script, there was a really weird bit where he grows. Like the Shape grows in size and does these supernatural things with the environment around him. So, I mean, there's not even the really weird argument that Michael is undead in this. He's just a straight up destructive supernatural force. Now, there was apparently an opening scene that got cut from part 4, which explained how Loomis and Myers survived the fire. But I'm glad it was cut. It was a very good call, because I don't think it was necessary after you saw, okay, Michael has severe burn scars and he's in a hospital prison, and Loomis has severe burn scars. They survived. That's it.
Loomis has severely migrating burn scars.
The button scar, as the director described it. You know, the reason it changed...
He called it a fried egg. Loomis called it a fried egg, and that's why it changed, because Loomis hated that after his wife mentioned it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even the director hated the initial ones, too.
It was bad.
Had to work with it. Now, I am a little confused about Jamie's story, and God, there's so much severe retconning in the later films anyway.
Yeah, I have some notes on this too, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I was watching this with my friend, as I told you earlier, and we kind of discussed about what the backstory could be. And we agreed that the best way to explain it is that Jamie Lee Curtis's character had 2 children and got divorced. Husband took the daughter, while she took the son, but then to hide because of her severe paranoia about Michael, she faked her own death.
It's not enough time. It's not enough time for her to get married and divorced. Here's sorry, you're okay. No. Here's I don't like this. I prefer the Laurie Strode is a bad mother theory, and I'll get to that in a second. But here's the most widely accepted theory of this. 1 and 2, 4, 5, and 6, same universe. Then H2O and Resurrection are actually alternate universes after 2. Which means there's 1, 2, 3. That would make 4 Halloween universes total, counting the new one that's coming out on the 19th. I don't like that. I prefer to see the first 8, not counting, obviously, not counting Rob Zombie's movies. I prefer to think of it as Jamie just being a bad mother. Like, she faked her own death, left her kid behind, found a new family. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's
went
weird
to work at a prestigious prep school.
I want to believe that something happened. Like, maybe this wasn't the first time Michael got out, or something along those lines, because why else would Jamie be seeing visions of him if she never knew him?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they do end up doing the whole psychic link in 5, and again, 4 could be setting up for that. I mean, obviously, what they're really doing is 4 is setting up for Jamie to actually take Michael's evil into herself, but that's not what ended up happening. That's why they did the whole psychic link thing in 5. But yeah, the reason she's seeing somebody she's never seen before is because she's linked to him. In the documentary I watched, it actually said in the end she is possessed by Michael's demon, and that's why, or Michael's evil. They didn't say demon in that, but that's why she stabbed him.
Like transfer of his energy or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Now, I do like how this one attempted to craft the mythology. I just think maybe from here on out they go a little too far in crafting the mythology. Like, way too far.
Especially 6. They went way off the deep end. As soon as they introduced the Man in Black in 5, shit's off the rails.
And I would also like to add, I have a very controversial opinion coming up, guys.
Oh, I love these. Normally I'm the one with these. I'm impressed.
For me, I think this is the definitive Michael mask.
Is that what I thought too, or did I think 6 was? Shit, I actually thought of this too.
I love the bright white, the clean lines. I think it looks fantastic.
Okay, no, then it was definitely 6 that I think is the definitive, because it was a little bit dirtier, and the neckline fit better with his overalls in 6. So I personally think 6 is maybe not the most definitive mask, but the best mask. Maybe 4 can be the most definitive then.
Yeah. Did you notice how horribly it changed in the school scene?
Yeah. And I also watched a big piece on the documentary about that too. Like, they ordered somebody screwed up in the effects department and made the wrong masks.
Well, they couldn't find the mask. They had to pick up another one temporarily because they didn't have time. They didn't have time to find the mask they'd lost.
Yeah, but they made a bunch of, like, those masks were like pinkish with blonde hair. There was more than one of those.
Yeah, but it looks really off. Even before I had, like, listened to commentary, I was like, well, that looks bizarre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is, I think part of the reason maybe you think this is so iconic, and I might agree if I go back and look at it again, is this is because they had to paint over those masks to get the actual look they were going for. It's where the imperfections and but that's where the stark whiteness comes from, but it still has the bumps and imperfections in it too. And that's from them just quickly slapping a coat of white on it.
And in this film, Loomis looks far less like Ahab and more like Cassandra. Nobody ever listens.
Yeah, poor Loomis.
Until it's too late.
Yeah, well, everybody starts listening after the police station, which is, too late. Mm-hmm. And Loomis does, poor Ted Hollister. Loomis kind of it starts a lynch mob in this, and he's kind of right in doing it, but
he's like, it doesn't matter, vigilantes, they're all good, we gotta stop this.
Yeah, but this is kind of a glimpse into our near future. If we keep going down the road we're going on now, a bunch of rednecks with guns are going to shoot all the Ted Hollisters of the world. And it drives me nuts because it doesn't seem like anybody actually got in any trouble for killing this poor, faceless Ted Hollister fellow.
Did Loomis get in trouble for indirectly almost causing the death of the drunk kid in part 2? I don't think so.
He didn't. That's what I forgot. Like, I thought Loomis had a more active role in killing that kid, but if anybody's at fault, it's the cop that hits him.
Yeah, but the kid started walking further and faster into the street when he saw the maniac waving the gun at him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just love Loomis. I'll defend him to my death for everything he does.
Now, I feel like there wasn't enough development and focus on Jamie as a character. They started really great in the beginning, and it kind of tapered off towards the end. I wanted to see more of her side, because this movie is really supposed to be about the family, but...
It was really more about the older sister,
Yeah. After she gets the costume, it's almost like you forget her as a character, and she's more of just a side thing at that point, even though it started with her as the main focus.
Well, since I worked ahead, just wait till you get to 5. You get your revenge on that situation pretty quickly in 5.
Now, the director saw Michael's goal as really connecting and finding his niece, but unable to comprehend how, due to his psychosis and the fact that the only way he communicates is through extreme violence and murder. But basically what the director said is that, well, Michael wasn't intending to kill Jamie when he was tracking her down. He just wanted to find her.
It's kind of interesting. It's sort of the idea of why zombies go to malls and stuff, because they're kind of trying to connect in a weird way to their old lives.
Oh, my gosh. You are not bringing up Land of the Dead in my podcast.
Hey, Land of the Dead is one of the few zombie movies I'm still okay with. John Leguizamo? Ozzy
really?
Argento? I mean, Ozzy Argento's in a little bit of trouble right now, but back then she was cool.
A zombie desperate to pump gas again like he did in life? Sympathetic zombies? Really?
That's the whole point. Okay, they took that a little bit far. But it actually got even further when you get to Survival of the Dead. There's like a zombie riding a horse in that and shit. It's pretty ridiculous. But, I mean, that Romero it's what he did in Dawn of the Dead too. The zombies were all at the mall because that's what they remembered. They remembered going to spend money. Look, or not remembered, but felt. That's why they were there. And people think that that's also why they eat people. It's not because they need it. It's because, it's this extreme way of connecting with what they were.
I feel like, branching off and obviously doing their own thing, I feel like Return of the Dead, especially part 1 and 2, and in some ways part 3 accomplished that a lot better by having
Return of the Living Dead?
Return of the Living Dead, yes.
Yeah.
By having that sort of transition from them into brainless zombies, but also that they could still talk, and when they were interrogated, the torso-less zombie on the table, and she explained that it was because of the extreme pain of death. I think that was a way better reason, but we are so far off the rails right now.
I agree, but you're right. Let's rein it in.
I love the Reverend character in this because it's Loomis's first opportunity to really kind of speak to himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was pretty great. I would have liked to see him down the road a little bit, or even like maybe a spin-off of his story, because that dude's obviously seen some shit.
Well, if you'd like to play around, you could just imagine him as the old guy in Wedding Singer, because that's the same actor.
It's a weird way to go with it, but okay.
Yeah, we've gone in weirder directions.
I'll tell you what, though. I think I told this story already, so stop me if I did, but did I ever tell you the story about the angel hunter? Have I talked about him in the podcast? I haven't.
No.
So I met a dude a couple of years ago that was this weird, real-life version of Loomis or real-life version of the Reverend. He was I was at this campground in Ohio, I think, and there was this guy that just, stumbled upon our camp, and we were talking to him. And he was – there was obviously some – dude was a bit touched. There was not a bit. The dude was mentally ill. He was talking about how he was an angel sent here to kill demons. And I'm if you want to tell me about your adventures killing demons in this weird fantasy world. I'll listen. I think that stuff's kind of interesting. I collect weird stories. I like it. So I'm talking to this dude, and he's talking about like how he's an angel and he has a sword and he's hunting demons. In the middle of this conversation, there's like 4 of us here. Dude pulls out a machete and he's like, and this is what I kill them with. Everybody's like, holy shit. Like there's a group of like 4 or 5 of us at this point, and like at least 3 people in the group are like, well, all right, we're heading back to camp now. We'll see you later. Good talking to you. And I stuck around just to see what would happen. Nothing happened. He ended up putting his machete away and wandering off. But yeah, so I met a Loomis. He turned out to just be a lunatic, but yeah, they're out there.
In a way that reminds me of a guy I met like freshman year of college in the student like entertainment area with my best friend. This dude was walking around with a walking cane for some reason, really bizarre, like total weebo. And we talked to him, and we were like, oh, let's go get sushi. So we had him buy us sushi, and then we followed him around the mall. And then he started talking about vampires.
Oh, no.
He legit believed in them. And then at one point, I think we sat in some massage chairs at a store because it was free. And he started explaining that there are vampires all around us. And then he looked at me. He was like, and you know I can read minds. I know you want to be one, but that's wrong. And it was just so bizarre. And I was like, I was so glad that he had already paid for the sushi. And I never talked to him again.
Good call. That dude's definitely in a weird place these days.
Yeah.
Or he's medicated. Who knows? He could be doing really well. We hope you're okay there, vampire hunter.
So the young child actor in this film, I felt was pretty darn good. Danielle Harris.
Oh, she's great. She's excellent in 4 and 5. I'm sorry, I keep mentioning 5. I worked ahead, guys. Sorry. For the first time ever.
The cast and crew really did everything possible, too, to ensure that she was never scared. And the only part in which she struggled was when they were on the truck, because those were probably the most intense stunts she had to do.
I thought it was really cool to listen to her in the documentary I watched and how fond she was and how she makes a point to being like, yeah, it didn't mess me up at all. I really enjoyed this movie. Like, everybody was really cool. Like, I really like that she looked back on that fondly. I'm just a huge Danielle Harris fan. She's great. She's the only good thing in the Rob Zombie's second Halloween. She's really good in the first one. I like the first one. She's great in the Hatchet movies. I'm hoping we get one more Hatchet movie. I know you haven't seen Victor Crowley yet, but yeah, Danielle Harris. Woo! I
do feel it's interesting to watch. It's great to watch Donald Pleasance in this too, because like. So far, parts 1, parts 2, parts 4, his character has changed through each one, through his experiences. And in this one, he's just broken. He's just tired. He just wants to keep the evil at bay because he knows that's all he can really do.
No! No!
And after all is said and done, going to when Michael is dead, just like Laurie Strode. And the evil is transferred, the energy, the spirit, the whatever, the psychotic break. I choose to believe that Jamie had a psychotic break. And she kills her stepmother. A new Michael Myers, Michelle Myers perhaps. And from here on out, Jamie slashes and trashes everyone in Poor Hatton. Wait, hold on. What? No, they wouldn't do that. That's stupid. That's like pulling a Tommy Jarvis and completely ignoring. They did? Crap. Never mind. I guess my point is completely lost.
They wanted to. The writer wanted to continue the Jamie storyline in that direction, but yeah, the studio just wasn't having it. They wanted Michael back.
Yeah, I picture this big, cheesy, fake producer. Nah, fuck you, kid. We gotta bring Michael back. With his giant, like, cigar in his mouth from the 1930s. That's what the people want, Michael.
They want Michael in the pictures. You're probably right.
Yeah. You gotta be kidding me. You can't have Halloween without Michael? That's like having a Sunday without a cherry. You gotta have Michael. Michael and Loomis. Loomis and Michael. It's the greatest comedy duo the silver screen has ever known.
We tried it in the last picture, and it obviously didn't work. We didn't make enough money, so get that Michael back on the phone.
Stop the presses! Michael and Loomis are back again!
So now he's a newspaper man?
No!
No! Oh, this is so much fun. I feel like everybody's going to hate this, but this is my favorite recording we've done in a while.
Ultimately, though, watching a movie like this, while it didn't absolutely impress, it's very nicely polished, and it's a solid film. And apparently downhill from here. I am scared.
I disagree. I think you're going to like 5. I think you're probably going to disagree with me on 6. I think most people would disagree with me on 6, but I have such a man crush on Paul Rudd that I'll let him get away with anything.
And he's supposed to be Tommy from part 1, right?
Yeah, he is. And I think that's really cool. I think it's cool that they did a connection to that. And he's got a lot of cool posters in his little room. But we'll get to that next week. I just want to say one more thing about this movie before we go to the audience. I want you guys to remember Ted Hollister. He was straight murdered, and nobody seemed to care. Halloween 4. That's all I just wanted to mention Ted Hollister again. No!
We need to do a slideshow of the innocent victims of the Halloween films, including the kid who slipped on blood in part 2. Or part 2, yeah.
Oh, I hate that guy. He's the last starfighter.
Oh. So if you want to find our blog, you can track us down at hallow-holic.blogspot.com or hallow-holic.wordpress.com.
You can tweet at us at nowhere23 or search for Hallow-Holics. Please do. Yeah. We would like to hear from you.
We would. And you can track us down at Hallow-Holics at outlook.com.
Or you can find us on Podpedia. You can search for our portal at HHA.
I am so...
Yes!
I was going to say I was proud of you, but no, you ruined it.
Well, you can be half proud. You can be proud and irritated with me at the same time. Most people are.
Hey, do you hear chanting?
Yeah. The hell is that?
Satan, why is there a circle on the lawn?
I got bored.
Good night, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Do you have the number for that priest? I mean, I really hate the sound of the bells that follow him wherever he goes, but...
I think it's kind of nice. I think it's pretty.
Thank you.